Hi guys, I'm Nina.
I'm Jamie.
And we are Bloody Essentials. Unfortunately, Ethan can't be here with us in person tonight, but he is here somewhere.
In our hearts.
Yeah, what's left of them. But he will be back next week, rest assured. Shout out to everyone that's already liked, followed, subscribed to the podcast. It really helps us out so much. And if you guys feel inclined after this episode, leave us a review. It really helps the podcast out a lot and it helps spread the word. So,
definitely.
Yeah. Shout out to Patreons, Rick Paulton and Swift. We really appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys. Keep an eye out. We've got some goodies headed your way and by snail mail. And then we also are hoping to get some movie parties started next month or this month. It's February, Jamie.
Yeah, already. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So keep an eye out. We'll have more details on that this in the weeks ahead. So
it's going to be fun.
It is. If you want to be mentioned in our episodes as well, receive fun little goodies from the entire Bloody Essentials team, you can join our Patreon. All the funds go back into the podcast 100%. It helps us upgrade our sound equipment, recording software, editing software, all that good jazz. And you get fun perks besides, just unedited episodes, right?
They're pretty great in themselves, okay?
Yeah, we also have a Discord channel, and it's a great way to keep in touch with us and see what we're doing on a more personal level off social media. So, yeah. Tonight we have the filmmakers of indie horror flick Looky-Loo. We have Nolan Mihail, the writer, and Jason Zink, the director. Hey guys.
Hi guys.
Hey.
Good to have you on.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Awesome to be here.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So tell us where your horror journey began, because you didn't just wake up one day and was like, let's make a movie, right? How did you each get into horror?
I guess I'll kick it off because I've been doing the horror dance a little longer, I think.
We see that.
Yeah. I grew up, surfing the VHS shelves in my video store and just fell in love with all the crazy boxes. And my mom isn't the biggest horror fan, but she was really supportive when I was young. So she would just rent me huge stacks of movies that she had no idea what was on them. Turns out they were full of disgusting, awful things.
The best kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I was corrupted early, and so when I started making movies, it was pretty quick that we decided to make a horror anthology called Night Terrors that kind of proved to us okay, maybe we can actually do this. And then we went on to do Straight Edge Kegger a few years later, and now I think we finally, with Nolan by my side, I think I finally found my happy place, making a very dark movie.
I'd say that my journey is much shorter. Actually, I was not I liked horror movies, but I wasn't I would not describe myself as a horror guy specifically. In fact, I wrote comedies, absurdist comedies and stuff. But I loved screenwriting just sort of as a hobby. So I'd written a punk rock slasher screenplay, and I was like, oh, this guy from Indiana made this movie Straight Edge Kegger, and I really like the trailer, and this is really cool. I'm gonna see if he wants to read my screenplay. And that's how we met and started working together. I just sent him my a horror screenplay that I happened to write. But I've really fallen in love with it. Now I've helped him at the table a couple of times at Days of the Dead, and it's really becoming something that I really love. So yeah, Looky-Loo is a far cry from the absurdist, lighthearted comedies that I was used to writing for years and years.
I love it.
Wow. And tell us a little bit about what the process was like to come up with Looky-Loo and make this a reality. Tell us a little bit about the Looky-Loo journey.
I'll steal from something Nolan has said a couple times. So we didn't plan on making this series at all. For a little while, we were working on a totally different idea, and but through that process, we were testing low light settings with the cameras. And so I was just walking around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning testing these cameras. And as we were looking through the footage, we were kind of like, man, this is really creepy. Like there's something inherently scary about this. And so I told Nolan, I texted him, I think, that I wanted to make a movie that was honestly not very original. It was basically like a low budget version of like Elijah Wood's Maniac.
Mm.
And Nolan misunderstood, and he thought that it was actually a filmmaker who, like, the movie you're watching is the one that he shot and edited. So like the idea came from neither of us and both of us at the same time.
That
That's amazing.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, can you tell us like briefly a little bit about what Looky-Loo is?
You want to take this, Nolan?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so Looky-Loo is it's I say story loosely, but it is about this sort of aspiring filmmaker who's making this kind of documentary where it starts off innocently enough. He's walking around his neighborhood, or he's bees on flowers and things like that, but then he starts following people, and then he starts looking in people's windows, then he starts going into people's houses, and it becomes this kind of this voyeuristic sort of escalation. We really wanted to make it slice of life, so there's not a ton of like traditional characterization. There's almost no dialogue. The plot, I'd say, it's kind of like, I'm not comparing us to Harmony Korine, but we definitely borrowed from that school of thought where like life doesn't have plots. So Looky-Loo doesn't really have a plot, but it is sort of like an origin story for a serial killer. Is sort of what it is.
Definitely.
Yeah.
definitely. And that like
Yeah.
voyeuristic feel is like really it was really creepy vibes. I loved it. Tell me a little bit about some of the like challenges and benefits of shooting all POV.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard. Well, a part of it is that I don't fancy myself a cinematographer. But like by the nature of what the story is, I kind of had to become one and kind of figure it out. So there's actually a lot of footage that's just never going to be seen, or some of it made its way to the Blu-ray, deleted scenes and stuff. But we actually a lot of times found that we would essentially be doing auditioning for like what it was going to look like and the maneuvers. We didn't know that. Like we would go out and shoot thinking like this is going to be the scene. But then we'd go back and review it and be like, okay, here's what didn't work and here's why. And then we would go back and shoot it and all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is what it should be. So it's been a learning experience for all of us. And the hardest thing for us is when we get into the special effects and everything, because while there's a lot of cutting, like the assumption is this guy is cutting out hundreds of hours of footage that he's shot. So you're not going to see it all as one take. But when we get into the actual intense moments, we were like, well, if this is going to feel real, we can't have multiple angles. We can't have a bunch of cuts. So once we get into the actual, like the dangerous, scary stuff, it's been really hard, but it's also been really rewarding, ultimately too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. What was one of your guys' favorite scenes to shoot?
Oh, it's weird. Okay, so we're actually shooting part 2 right now. And so I think I have to take this question because Nolan wasn't on set for part
I wasn't
1.
on set for any of part 1. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But I will
I was on
say
the
like
phone.
yeah. We were like, there were times where like I would go to shoot with an actress and I would call Nolan and be like, hey, the place doesn't look exactly like we thought, and we'd work through things. I'd say probably in part 1, I think my favorite is probably the ending, which I don't want to ruin the ending. And it wasn't like necessarily fun. It was really, it's a really dark scene. But it was really rewarding. And a part of what you guys don't get to see, like, unless you get the Blu-ray, is that I was mentoring 10 Purdue students during the production.
Wow.
So like while we have this really intense thing that we're filming with this actress and asking her to like be in that awful moment, in the kitchen just out of the way of the shot is like 10 students like huddling down to not be in the shot. And so it was weird for like as dark as the subject matter was, we actually did keep the mood pretty light, and like between takes everybody would be laughing and joking and stuff. So I have a lot of I have like a heartfelt, soft spot for that scene.
Oh, I love that. That was definitely one of my favorite moments in the film too.
Yeah, and Courtney, oh my god, she was so good. She was so good.
Yeah.
We put her through hell.
Yeah,
We really did.
all the actors were great.
Oh yeah, they were.
That's
They
awesome.
were. And what's the reaction kind of been to this movie so far for you guys?
So I mean, I've been sending around like screeners and things, and so far it's been, knock on wood, but it's been very positive. I think a lot of people are surprised, and even this movie is definitely not for everyone. I don't think, there have been times when I've said to people like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't watch this one, because it is. I mean, it's disturbing. It's an upsetting
Yeah.
movie. But there is like there was a lot of thought put into it. There weren't really any like accidents or whatever. Like most of the details were intentional, that are in there. So I don't know. It's been like really positive, and people have been really excited about it, which has been surreal for me because I'm not. This is my first, foray into this. So to get any kind of attention at all is just exciting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been very positive. I think people are genuinely very scared though.
Yeah.
when they
And-
watch it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think we
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I think we really prepared ourselves for the worst. Like I think we knew it would probably be polarizing, and so far we haven't gotten the like vitriol and anger that we thought we were gonna get, and like
Yep.
maybe that's coming. I don't
It's
know.
probably coming.
It's probably coming, but we've been pleasantly surprised that people seem to like actually be paying attention, and they get that we aren't. We actually tried to break a lot of horror cliches and taboos with the movie, but we weren't sure if people would pick up on that. And I think so far, especially the horror fans who have watched it so far seem to really appreciate what we did. So
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when I was watching it, I don't know about Jamie, but like the cinematography was so gorgeous, and the POV shots, a lot of them, especially like once you like looking through the windows, and particularly like going inside the houses and just like watching people, it very much felt like that early 1970s like Michael Myers POV shots. And like I'm not just saying that, like it really did feel like I was watching like, is this like a cut from like Halloween or something? Like that's legit like what it felt like. Were there particular filmmakers or, writers that kind of inspired you guys when making this?
I mean, of course, you nailed it on the head when it comes to those POV shots from Halloween. But yeah, there were quite a few things that influenced it, and some of it maybe like I don't think Nolan and I really discussed a lot of these influences, but like when we look back on it, we're like, oh, that makes sense. So like, Maniac,
Yeah.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Mhm.
We definitely have like a Peeping Tom
Yeah.
vibe for sure. And actually, I'll tell you the truth. When it came to the title, it was a placeholder. Like I literally, I was like, this movie's similar to Peeping Tom, so I'll just look up synonyms for Peeping Tom, and I found Looky-Loo, and that was really just a placeholder that we kind of fell in love with. Like it wound up just the more we said it, and we were like, at first we were like, oh, we'll replace it later, but we just kept referring to it as Looky-Loo until we finally were like, actually, that feels right. Like I think this is the title. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate what you're saying about the cinematography because it's like my first time really doing this. Like I've shot other things before, but I've never tried to shoot a feature like this. And like we have to walk this weird line where like you're trying to make a compelling movie visually, but you also don't want it to look too good because then it's like it wouldn't make sense that this amateur filmmaker turned killer would make it. So
Exactly.
yeah, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, and Jamie and I are big cinematography buffs, so like, yeah. But I appreciate that because I am a big found footage nerd, and it's one of my biggest gripes with found footage. We actually have a movie coming up that we're reviewing that it's like too perfect, and it's like it doesn't work if it's in the found footage genre. Like you can make it look clean and nice without, like, clearly that's not your handheld camera that you're using.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And then,
oh, sorry. I was gonna say that a big part of my my inspiration, at least in writing it, came from a lot of like true crime. I think probably the biggest one was "I'll Be Gone in the Dark" by Michelle McNamara. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's fantastic, and the audiobook's great if you're a busy person like me and you like the audiobooks. But I think a big part of what we both talked about when we were making it was sort of, you know, people get a little too comfortable with true crime and forget that like consumers of true crime, and this isn't judgment, I'm a consumer of true crime, I think Jason is as well, you know, but you're consuming a very real tragedy when you do that, and there's some people that it seems like they're a little too comfortable with that idea, so I think we really wanted to capture the realism of that too.
Definitely.
and you know, in general, what do you guys think makes a movie scary? Because this one was scary. Tell me in general, what do you think makes a movie scary?
Well, I think for me, I like things that are grounded. Like grounded in reality, something that feels real. That doesn't mean that I don't like fantastical movies too. Like I do, but there's something really, really creepy about a guy who just snaps, because I think it feels so real, especially nowadays, like way too close to home. Yeah, so that was something that we tried to channel with this. But yeah, somebody could right now be watching me outside of the window to my left, and I would have no idea because I'm too preoccupied living my life. And that something about that creeps me out a little bit more than like an alien coming to attack me or something.
Yeah, for sure.
We talked a couple of times about it, like who are we trying to scare with this movie, and I was just like, you know, most people have a house, you know. I'd be pretty scared about the idea of someone getting into my house when I'm gone. You know, so we definitely wanted to keep it real, but to give, I suppose I'll give an example that's a little bit more fantastic. Suspense tends to get me, and I was asked this question recently, actually, and my answer was like the last time that I was really scared watching a movie was probably Pan's Labyrinth in the movie theater with the pale man and the hands. I remember I was like 19. I was like balled up in my seat and like being like this, like I don't want to. I think that's the last time I've been like really good and scared watching a movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it doesn't happen that often to that degree.
Yeah. Oh, that movie still gets me. I've seen it a million times. Yeah.
I don't like it. I
like it and I don't.
Beautiful movie. Beautiful movie.
Yeah.
That scene scares me. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you know, Pan's Labyrinth, are there movies or let's say filmmakers, screenwriters that inspire you guys?
I mean, there's plenty. There's a lot.
Yeah.
A ton.
Where do we start, kind of thing? Yeah.
I mean, you know what keeps impressing me is just how many movies I haven't seen that are really great. Like, because I grew up on like B movies, I've collected VHS tapes for a long time, and during the pandemic I got back into it pretty heavily, like a lot of people did, I think. And I just keep finding these weird gems that sometimes they're not great, but like they still inspire me. Like I just watched these are not good movies, but Psycho Cop and Psycho Cop 2.
Yes, please.
Which the killer is Bob Vance Refrigeration from the I had never seen those movies, and like something about it is like empowering when I see such like a low budget effort that still winds up being cool. But of course, some of the heavy hitters like Wes Craven is like a huge influence for me. John Carpenter is a god, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta love
Rec-
Wes.
Yeah. Like recently, like I think the biggest obsession in our house right now that we're just covering stuff is The Substance. Like
Oh my god.
we are obsessed.
Yes.
Same.
So good. That was such a great film.
Oh, I feel like I keep giving non-horror answers to these.
Non-horror is totally okay.
That's totally okay.
Yeah.
Totally
So
valid, yeah.
my favorite movie of all time is RoboCop. So I'm really
Yes.
picking.
That's horror
picking stuff
adjacent.
I'm picking stuff that's so far from what we did. I don't
No.
know what that says, but
No, that is
but yeah,
definitely horror adjacent.
Yeah.
Like I
It
love
it is
RoboCop.
for sure. Well, and sort of going to what Jason was saying about like the movie RoboCop, just based off the title, shouldn't be good. It had no business being as good as it was. You know what I mean? And like poignant, and it's about something. And there's, so I think I gravitate towards stories like that though, where there's something more going on,
Yeah.
but it's not taking itself too seriously.
Yeah.
That you can still have fun. With
Definitely.
it. So yeah.
Yeah. Those are some of my favorite types of movies, honestly. Like whether it's
Mhm.
horror or not, like movies that deep down, like they have a reason,
Mhm.
like they have meaning behind them. And that
Yeah.
that can be for anything. So
Yeah.
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 And what kind of stuff are you guys working on next? You mentioned that you are shooting the sequel to Looky-Loo. Like, what can you tell us about it?
Nolan? I don't know what I should say.
So part 2, it's it's exciting because it was stuff that we really wanted to put some of this in part 1, but we were like, artistic integrity, we can't do it. We've got to do the origin story, and then but it is sort of it's ramping up, and it takes place in a world where the killer has released his film. He's released, like,
Ooh.
Looky-Loo Part 1 is like a viral video. It's been traded on torrent sites and uploaded on these kind of shady websites, and people have seen it and they're talking about it. It's like the news story du jour, and he's making his second film in that environment. So he's listening to podcasts about himself while
I love
he's
that.
so it's like but it's it's the same kind of formula as part 1. It's just it's more, I would say, for anybody that would criticize part 1 as being too slow, that's a fair critique. It's definitely like a slow burn that pays off, I think.
Yeah.
But this definitely starts at a 10. So we're really excited about it. I know I am. So
yeah, and it's like now he's grown as a killer, sadly, but he's also grown as a filmmaker. So
Yep.
like I'm not sure how many people are going to pick up on this, but even at the end of part 1, after the kind of crazy scene, that final scene that we were talking about, when it cuts to something else, the equipment has improved. Like the image quality is better. And so part 2, it's like it's kind of giving everybody what they were missing from part 1, but Nina, I promise that it doesn't break our own rule.
Good.
Like
he doesn't discover star wipes in part 2.
No. Yeah. And so it's been really difficult to pull part 2 off, and we're still working on it, but like we're way further than we thought we were going to be. Just a bunch of stuff just kind of fell into place, and so we're probably like 80% of the way through part 2.
Yeah.
So we're hoping like momentum builds on part 1, and then it's like, surprise, here's part 2 ready to go.
That'd be amazing. Now, Looky-Loo Part 1, like that's available on Blu-ray, you guys said?
Yeah, so right now there's a pre-order through Scream Team Releasing that's Blu-ray, and we packed that thing. My Purdue students actually shot a behind-the-scenes featurette that's on there, and we got a bunch of deleted scenes and audio commentary. It's packed full of stuff, and they're doing like a limited VHS run, and then in a couple months we've actually got a different VHS release coming out through Lunchmeat VHS. And a lot of people are asking right now where they can stream it, and sadly, you can't. But if people want to see the movie, they should go poke poke their favorite streaming platform and be like, hey, pick up this movie because we're still looking for a home and we could use all the help we can get.
Yeah, definitely. We see you, Tubi and Shudder.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that would be amazing.
I'm curious too, you guys have been going to horror cons as well. Tell us what you enjoy about the horror cons, because that's where we met you. So, what do you like about the horror con experience?
Well, Nolan's only done it a couple times, so
Okay.
Nolan can give you a fresh perspective, but I've been doing it since I was in high school. First just as a fan, and then eventually as a filmmaker. And those weekends, the costs add up. I wish I could go to every single one that there was. But yeah, I just love meeting new people and chatting horror movies. Like, it's most of the people like around me don't actually care that much about horror. Like a lot of my like really close loved ones are not horror nerds like me. Some are. But it's kind of all I want to talk about most of the time.
Same.
So it's nice when you go to a con and you just get to like, I can't even tell you how many times, I can't count how many times I'm just like, I love your shirt. And then we just start talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 or something like that.
Yeah. It's like, you don't even have to ask, like, are you into horror? We can tell you are, and you're my people.
Yep.
Nolan, what about you?
So yeah, I'm like relatively new to it, and I have very bad social anxiety, so it is not my natural place to be at a crowded convention. However, I would say that even though it can be like stressful for me to do those, I always make friends when I'm there. Like I've got, we made so many good friends this time, and I was literally just like glued to the seat. And then I saw some friends that I'd made at the previous one, and like we hung out and talked, and they kept coming back to the table and talking. And so like, I just like that. I like how close knit sort of the groups are. I like the sort of the really very real friendships that you can make when you're there, and I really love the way that the fans support each other. So much of the like support that we've gotten from Looky-Loo just comes from like fans that we met at the con, or and that's something that like really makes me feel like a sense of belonging with this group. So that's my answer. It's the people that you meet and really connect with.
That's so true. There's nothing like the horror community. Like I also have such bad social anxiety, and just being in crowds is stressful, but especially when you're like doing self-promotion type work, like it's just like the worst. But when you find your people, and like, I don't know, like there's just something special about horror cons, and the fans are different than most fans. So
we're a friendly bunch.
Oh yeah. And when you find those people, like they just like, it's friends for life. So So what are some of your like favorite what are some of your favorite subgenres for horror? Like this Looky-Loo is a combination of like a slasher, found footage. What are some of your favorite like subgenres of horror, or maybe just favorite movie genres in general?
I'm a big fan of found footage and mockumentary in general. So like even movies that are not horror, like Drop Dead Gorgeous is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Same.
So good.
I love that movie so much. Like that's one that I just pure joy the whole way through, And I also grew up watching actual documentaries that I'm also obsessed with. So you kind of hit the nail on the head with everything you said. I mean, found footage, slasher is big for me. Mockumentary, those are probably my jam. But I'm a little eclectic. I'm all over the place.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely really enjoy a lot of found footage horror movies, but I also like larger scale things. The Shining, I'd say that's a movie that really affected me pretty profoundly, even though I'm sure I don't understand everything that's going on in that movie. It's still like I get a real visceral reaction watching that. And I like a lot of period horror movies. So like I really loved
Same.
Nosferatu. But I
Mhm.
knew I was gonna love
Incredible.
Nosferatu. I knew I was gonna love it before I
Yeah.
went and saw it. Yeah, so yeah, I mean that's kind of where I am. But like Jason, I'd say that I have very eclectic tastes. I'd say I'm more like I would have said yes, I'm a movie nerd before I'd said like I'm a horror nerd. I think I'm just he's he's slowly turning me into yeah, a horror nerd. So yeah.
Good.
Awesome. Good
Sam's
work.
great.
Yes, most excellent.
Yes.
Join the dark side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keep it going.
He's finally corrupted me. I thought that I was past that, being almost 40, but nope, I got corrupted finally.
It's never too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's never too late.
The thing I've always
Yeah.
loved about horror as a genre is it encompasses all other genres. Like,
Yeah.
I never hear somebody be like, it's a sci-fi comedy. Like, maybe somebody says that, but like horror comedy, it just works for some reason.
Yeah.
And so the variety is crazy. Like,
Oh yeah.
to go from like, I'm literally like right now I'm wearing a Scream sweatshirt over a Jennifer's Body t-shirt
Yes.
and a Slumber Party Massacre 2 hat. Like
Oh, I love
three
it.
three very different movies that all
Mhm.
somehow like fit into that genre of horror. So
Yeah.
you can never get bored.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I feel like with horror, like whether you are a like diehard fan or you're just getting into it, like there's something for you somewhere in this vicinity of subgenres. Like I
Yes.
didn't even realize like 20 years ago how many subgenres within horror there are, and it's just becoming more and more prevalent to just ask somebody, "Hey, what's your favorite subgenre?" Like it's insane.
Mhm.
But there's definitely something for everybody, whether you're like not really into being scared, like there's something for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And please let us know when Looky-Loo 2 is coming out, because we would love to help out in any way we can in promoting that as well, guys.
You
Definitely.
bet.
Absolutely.
We're
Yeah.
excited.
Or
Absolutely.
any other projects that you're working on.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It was so much fun meeting you guys last year, and we're so excited to see where Looky-Loo goes and what else you guys have in store for us.
Thank you guys so much. We
Absolutely.
really appreciate it.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, guys. If you want to find out more about Looky-Loo, details will be in the description below, and make sure you check them out and support them because they are awesome. And Looky-Loo, you're not going to want to miss that. But until next time, just remember, if you ever find yourself in a horror movie, don't have sex,
Don't do drugs.
and definitely don't die. We'll see you next time, guys.